Good day to you on the last day of June in 2026. We have our world report. It shouldn't take too long because there's not much to report in the world right now that you don't already know. Things are kind of stalled, things are kind of dull. You'll see up here in the corner the Glenn Deason program. Glenn is on the right, and on the left is Alexander Murcuris, who is English, although I believe that is a French last name. I've never seen that name. One reminds one, or at least me, of Freddie Mercury. But what I wanted you to see, which doesn't have too much to do with world politics, is the shape of these two men's schnozolas. Now look at Glenn's, which is pointed, and then look at Alexander's. Have you ever seen such a bulbous nose? It doesn't look like he has a disease. I mean, it's a perfectly normally shaped face. I'm not trying to make fun of him, but my God, those are two way different noses. Now, I have studied my own nose and comparing it with my father's nose, and our noses look almost exactly alike. It's not an unusual shape, and it's not exactly a handsome shape. Noses kind of like, there are such things as handsome noses, I suppose I would have to confess. You don't want to be too particular about what you like about a man's face if you're a man. Look at the shape of his lips. You know what? No, I was raised in that generation. Oh, there was some kind of phobia involved. You don't want anybody to start, hey, that sure sounds, you know what. I mean, these days, you got to admit, a lot safer in being able to execute freedom of speech in some really, dangerous mode. Well, yeah, you're executing freedom of speech. There's freedom of response, too. Well, anyway, we won't be talking about what these two men are talking about because they're not really saying anything. And that's not against Glenn or his guest. Glenn is top-notch, and his guests are top-notch. I've been following this daily for well over a month in order to get facts about what's going on in parts of the world that I really need information about according to what I think I need. I don't know what you think you need in finding out about, what's going on in Ukraine these days? What's going on in Iran? What's going on in Israel, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank? What's going on in Yemen? Gee whiz, how does Russia feel about NATO and Germany rearming and being absolutely determined to wipe Russia out? I mean, that's kind of like, wow, man. So I thought that I would just spill the beans since I know this isn't geometry that I'm speaking of. But I mean, I did give a video presentation within the past 24 hours that attempted to talk about the fact that science cannot possibly be limited to scientific solutions because science has a context. What we're after are human solutions to human questions using rational logic, which is not exactly rocket science or brain surgery, or there's some other metaphors, but I would just say it's not mathematics. It's not physics. It's human. And I don't think a man can safely evade that. I went much further than that. In what you'd have to say is a scientific, philosophical point of view on the situation in science vis-a-vis ourselves. We are trying to be scientists. I'm trying to be. I'm not sure how well I'm doing because I don't really have peer review. But you have kind of an idea. I mean, I do have an objective intelligence where I am able to try to assess my own advancement or failure. How well am I doing? Well, I covered a lot of that. But what about the world situation? What do I have to say about the world situation as a scientist? Should a scientist even make an observation on the world situation? I choose to do so because I'm really engineered to do so. I don't know about you. Perhaps you are like, gee whiz, what an awful thing to have to do. I'm glad I'm not called upon to make an assessment of the world situation. Gee willikers, That just sounds like a really hideous assignment. Well, I respect that totally. I am actually under orders. According to my own view of my own life. You don't need to know the details of that. Perhaps I said too much. I don't think so. I think certainly these days, this is more common in the past. You don't trust anything even a scientist says unless you know something about the man. Why is he talking? Why is Francis Bacon writing about how science is conducted? Why is Immanuel Kant writing about questioning the very nature of reality? Why is Albert Einstein talking to President Roosevelt about the situation of the Jews in Europe? You have to ask these questions. Why are science presenters and science leaders, science giants, why are they on the YouTube circuit always saying the same thing over and over again? I mean, we are human. We exist. We don't exist in a little petri dish off in a side room away from the real people. Although some, you could say those kind of cliques and groups exist, where it's top secret. If you're working on the atomic bomb during World War II, you're not talking about it at the card table, with the local spinsters or housewives. You don't just bandy about, oh yeah, we're pretty close, we think we're going to beat the Germans to the bomb. No. No. Well, something as similar is going on right now. There's a lockdown on information everywhere across the board. You could say it's science, you could say it's politics, you could say it's humanity. It's really limited to a certain stratum of humans who can afford a cell phone. A lot of people around the world have cell phones now. They're very popular in China, India, and indeed in Iran. And you would be hard-pressed to find a country on Earth that is not aware of the cell phone. Already, I mean, we're talking about global advancements that are totally foreign to my parents, for instance, both of whom have passed out of this level of existence as a nice euphemism for death. I don't believe that any rational man of any description, whatever he does for a living, is somehow naturally disbarred or discouraged from learning about the world because maybe it's beyond you. You're just not equipped in political indoctrination. You didn't take enough classes. No! Men read the newspapers of all walks of life. You listen to the news if you don't like reading. Perhaps you just like hearing the radio. Well, now you have a pretty broadband radio, the internet. You get video with it. It's unbelievable. You can hold it in your hand. You can hold it in your hand and watch and hear the news while you're driving at 70 miles an hour. I've seen it done numerous times. Maybe you have too. We live in a brave new world, which was a science fiction title, by the way. And I have mentioned, at least to myself, I don't know if I've said this out loud, but eventually others have, 1984. I mean, we're talking about what? About 40 years after 1984 is already history. And boy, oh boy. I mean, maybe 1984 was kind of taking effect, meaning lockdown. We're talking way beyond Nazi propagandism. We're talking about information is illegal. Oh, I can prove it. I have been mentioning it quite a bit more frequently lately in my videos because I'm attempting to be a real scientist covering real events as an authority. I mean, we're hearing from Alexander Mercury, which again I think is quite an interesting name. And I just want you to hear his voice, although I'll have to adjust the audio here so you don't hear an echo. And I also want to make sure I turn off the right one. Okay, here it goes. Just so you can hear his voice. You're going to hear Glenn first. I'm not done listening to this. I told you I listen to it every day. But this is called A New Putin, From Diplomacy to War. Oh, this is just the theme. It's war. We're going to war. Who's we, white man? By the way, and that's in the last video, I found out where that comes from. It's from the Lone Ranger. It's a great joke. It's from Mad Magazine, by the way. I didn't get to that part because it wasn't really pertinent to the topic of geometry, which I wasn't even on anyway because I love to tell stories because I'm human. Well, anyway, let's just hear this. I just am going to adjust this and then I'll be right back with my own rather raspy voice. I'm trying to modulate my voice. And what I want you to hear Mercury's accent. It's not what you call upper British class accent. The man is admirable. I'm not saying anything against his nose or his accent. But, I mean, it's worthy of comment because this is kind of the name of the game in YouTube. You try not to hurt anyone's feelings, but, well, sometimes, it can be misinterpreted. Let's hear it.
Article in 1990, I think, about the unipolar moment, and the argument was, well, we'll dominate the world as long as the distribution of power permits it. Once the distribution of power shifts, we have multipolar world, then we'll embrace it. I don't think people recognized we would have a whole 30-year long rise of a new political class, completely immersed in this ideology that our dominance is the only source of peace, and we rather have war than accept a new distribution of power. So the rationality is something, that took me a bit by surprise, how quickly this went away. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely correct about this. By the way, you've charted a lot of this in your various books that you've written, just to say, and which would be very useful reading for many people. I remember reading one of your books in which you showed the extraordinary arrogance with which Western officials, European as well as American, dealt with their Russian on opposite numbers, consistently refusing to accept that the Russians had any legitimate security concerns at all, and applying what you described as salami tactics against the Russians all the time. So, yes, we worked ourselves into that situation. And it's very difficult to see how, short of a major crisis and a real defeat in some form, we're ever going to be shaken out of it. The one thing I would say is that despite the fact that opposition.
Okay, I hope I did that right, but I'll find out during the editing process. I just do want to add my 2 cents because I do consider myself a world leader in a very strange matrix adjunct that will never be real. Well, that's the little world that I inhabit. I live alone. I have for 16 years. I'm at the edge of a desert. I have basically a couple of remote acquaintances, but no family members ever visit. I'm totally out of touch with the world. I'm as happy as a clam at high tide, don't get me wrong. But I am a little unusual, and I think you ought to know that I do consider myself to be the 12th Imam, the hidden one. I'm the leader of Christianity, the absolute final authority on anything having to do with the Quran. Well, not the Quran, but the Bible, the book of Enoch. Well, that's weird. Very weird. I've confessed to being religious. I believe in God, which means I can't be an American Scientist. They don't allow among their membership men who are stupid enough to believe in deity. So this war is a lot deeper than anybody suspects. Which war? The war of Europe against Russia, which has already started, and the war of the United States and Israel against Iran, which is heating up and going nuclear. There's going to be nuclear deployment in all quarters. It's already started. I was amazed to learn that it's going to be no problem at all for Iran to deploy a nuclear weapon that they can aim, and with the assistance of China, possibly even Russia, to hit its target inside of Israel. A nuclear weapon. I don't see how that can be avoided eventually. But the only question is, it's apocalyptic, you see, and this is really dicey. The actual culmination could be 100 years from now, And there's just going to be this endless fucking war in Ukraine, an endless fucking genocide in wherever Israel expands to, which is going to be Syria. They're absorbing Lebanon now. They're going to absorb Syria, and then they're going to head for Turkey. They're going to try to take over, and they're going to invade Iran. There's no question about that. This is the whole reason for their existence, but I'm not sure everybody was fully aware of that 75 years ago, that that's Israel's only reason for existence. It's not just to dominate the Middle East, which is already megalomaniac. These cats just crawled out of the ovens of Europe just yesterday, right? Well, the whole reason for existence is to get away from persecution, which the extreme form is genocide. That's all they do. That's why Netanyahu is actually in danger of going to jail, because he's not going hard enough on the niggers. And I'm sorry to use, that's actually a bracketed word. It's been demoted. Niggers. But in Israel, oh, that's where you find niggers. In the worst possible connotation. These are white supremacists who call themselves religious Jews. They think that they're religious. So they get this from the Bible. I don't know how well aware Americans are of the actual mindset, as Norman Finkelstein points out very well, both of whose parents were in the death camps, and they're the only survivors of their generation to come out of the death camps and, in fact, produce a child named Norman Finkelstein, the foremost authority on Israel today. Is he ever going to be on the Glenn Deason show? No, but that's probably because Norman doesn't want to be. Norman is a scholar, and he doesn't think that he's an expert on military affairs. Well, that's where your friend, Anagalactic, moi, comes in to fill in what Glenn simply cannot see. He just can't see what's actually happening. He fully admits it. This is nothing against him in particular. All of his guests for the past month are unanimous on one aspect of what they address, this global situation. Basically, Russia and Iran are being attacked by the West. So, I mean, you have to analyze that at some level, and Glenn comes forward to analyze it. But nobody can say what's actually happening, and they all admit this, which I find remarkable, because something is being left out. What is it? What's being left out? I really think that it's my duty to answer that, because I can see absolutely clearly what's being left out. Excuse me, I was checking my teeth. I hope you didn't notice, but I have a medicinal agent. It's from Indonesia. It was given to me by a shaman woman who was trying to help me with my arthritis, which is just crippling. And so I chew this nasty bark. and and it sometimes when I like bare my teeth, like just not smile but just open my mouth while I'm talking, I notice it looks like either I have nothing but stumps for teeth, or perhaps you would just gain the total misapprehension, just this image of some southern swine with just goddamn just snooze, as we call it, snuff users. This isn't snuff that you sneeze with like the English swine did, but this is southern, actually western now. Even cowboys, oh fuck, it goes everywhere, just tobacco in a can, just nasty. It's cheap now. It used to be $10 a can, and I confess I was addicted at one time and really spent a whale of a lot of money on just this filthy habit when I discovered I could no longer smoke because I have asthma. So I just wanted you to know that by no means could that crud that just was covering my teeth I checked in the bathroom mirror. I put this on pause and checked, and oh my goodness, I almost vomited. Because I said, oh, good Lord, I hope my viewers didn't see that. I'm poking fun at this guy's nose. And, and meanwhile, I mean, the total hypocrisy is just so degrading, I can't even stomach it. So I checked my teeth, and my goodness, I almost passed out. I had to scrape it off this bark from Indonesia that a local shaman or shaman woman gave me to help me with my arthritis. And my nose may have grown like Pinocchio's. It'd be great if I could just do like some animation where my nose is now like Cyrano de Bergerac's. But anyway, I wanted to get around to giving you the secrets of the universe in the most sordid, golly Moses, you're not going to like this at all. And I've kind of made a script. I just did this early this morning, which is when I do most of my work now, because when you live alone in a desert with no contacts of any kind, really, you pretty much start to either talk to yourself or you better write it down. You're going to have to do something. So I'm hearing Deezen lately, really for the past week or two. Everything's stalled. Like, not very much exciting is happening, but I continue to listen, so I always learn something. Oh, it's a great channel. I'm not saying he's in any way deficient. He's the best. But something is being systematically left out, not just by Deezen, by everybody. No matter how much on the good side of the Force you are, which I think I'm a full-fledged Jedi Knight of the light side of the Force, I mean, I'm not alone. There's a lot of us, trying to either become better Jedis or something equivalent to a hero, and, somehow finding a solution. But by solution, what is meant, at least in my small world, is a rationalization. Oh, nobody's going to fix this. There's no fix. That's not the kind of solution we seek. What we seek is the ability to rationalize it, which has two connotations according to the dictionary. So I want to be sure that you realize I'm not using rationalization in the case of suppression of reality. Because rationalization is an excuse in one context. It's a cop-out. Hey, quit trying your rationalizations and just either admit that you're guilty or not, but quit rationalizing. But you see, rationalization in logic is exactly what we do in science to get solutions. Rationalization means comparing two quantities in some kind of relation, which is supposed to be balanced mathematically and quantitatively. You're rationalizing two quantities in order to make a decision. When it's binary, it's either a hunk of lead or it's just a piece of ether. In other words, it's yes or no. So it's not really a quantity. Well, it's a numeric quantity, on or off. Well, really, 1 or 0. It has a lot of context, this binary cradola. But what we want to do here, I'm just going to leave their faces up there, but, I mean, that schnoz, man, I hope you agree. I wasn't just trying to, have a fun time with a man who's just, he was born with that nose. I mean, I told you, we're just humans, okay? But we do like to have fun, and he's English. Oh, he's heard worse in a pub. He's probably dished it out worse in a pub, because it's not bad if it's in the right spirit of jolly old fun. Aren't we all on the same page with jolly old fun? Well, it's contextual. And maybe I went a little overboard in saying his nose was bulbous. But it is. It's just completely round compared with Deezen's nose, which is like there's a bird-like, beak-like nose. So anyway, my nose is nothing to laugh at, okay? Well, I mean, actually it is. But again, with beer, we can all handle it, but we're not drinking beer right now, are we? No, and so I do wish to give my opinion, but it's more than an opinion. I'm the man. I'm the authority. I already gave the bracketing information that I don't live on the island of Elba or St. Helena in the South Atlantic because The English caught me before I could take over Europe completely. You know, Napoleon, I hope you understand. So the reason I was showing that section of the video is because Deason mentioned an author who talked about how there had been a reasonable exit strategy for the imperialist West. Way back when, perhaps in as early as the 60s or 70s, perhaps later. These men are younger than I am. But there had been a well-known exit strategy for when the whole capitalist imperialist expansion period following World War II petered out into multipolarity, which was long ago foreseen, at least by this author, whom I think Deason said is Krautheimer, but the closed caption had Crowhammer, so I didn't really hear it. I played it over like 5 times and still didn't, because I wanted to see this document, which I'm pretty good at finding these things. It's fairly easy now out on the internet if you're determined. So instead of continuing the used car salesman, just buy our stuff, just be part of the American trip, and we'll protect you with our nuclear weapons. That's really how it went. That was basically the Cold War, which America was clearly winning. Because we kept expanding everywhere the British went. Now there's Americans just taking over. As for the commies, no, you stay in goddamn Russia and China. And fuck you, stay there. But it wasn't like, let's kill them all. Now it's kill them all. But see, that is brand new. Well, it's been brand new for the past few years anyway. Ever since Russia defended itself against NATO in Ukraine, where NATO was attacking Russia. NATO was attacking Russia, no question. Well, now you can see that NATO is attacking Russia. But it's not exactly NATO anymore, which is just an empty document. It's the entire European continent now has one mind, and it's death to Russia, which is so strange to me because I was raised in a Cold War environment. This isn't Cold War. This has gone brazen hot. This will culminate in nuclear warfare. There is no way out now. But it could be 60 years from now. It's just the nature of the apocalypse, which this is. I'm just telling you, that's my point of view. It's the apocalypse. The last prophecy in the Israeli transmission, which was directly from heaven, Yeshua's throne in the heaven, as all Islam people know, because they're servants of the Most High and they respect all prophets. Of course, all the Islam people believe me when I tell them that the book of Revelation is fully approved by Muhammad. And yes, it does say that the Son of God is in heaven right now. That's a fact. So I know that my Islam brothers will respect that once they hear it. But they're never going to hear it. They're never going to hear the truth about Yeshua's secret transmission from heaven to earth through a man named Johann, one of the last of the actual Jews. Almost a contemporary of Yeshua himself. And it was possible that Johann was a very young man when Yeshua was crucified by the last of the Jews, after which they were kicked out of their country. Well, now they're back, they say. Well, of course, that's ridiculous. The ones who came back are called whiteys. They're Jewish. They're white. They're imperialists, obviously. Moshe Dayan, I read all his stuff. Menachem Begin, I read his stuff. Dominique Lapierre and Larry Collins, who wrote O Jerusalem, which is a pure, just paean to Zionism. I mean, how did the European whiteys invade and destroy the people who were already there and take over? Were they heroic? I thought so. I was totally propagandized on I Spy. I mean, we're talking Bill Cosby, one of the great actors. Bill Cosby and another very famous actor played 2 CIA agents who went all over the world basically assassinating foreign leaders so that Kellogg's cornflakes and McDonald's could appear in the streets of whatever country they were conquering in the name of imperialism. And so the formation of Israel as a juggernaut of white supremacy was inevitable. The British engineered it. They engineered the Jews were allowed to enter and steal and rape and murder, just mass murder. The British loved it. The British are masters of this stuff. So they kind of liked the idea, you know, once the 6 million Jews of Europe were massacred, there were still enough left to make an aliyah, another wave of immigration, which had been going on for decades, whereby these European whiteys, just calling themselves Jews, which of course they're not, there's no such thing. They're just European idiots. They're just European losers. As indeed is part of the Mosaic curse. You're actually allowed by God to make fun of those people as a people, not as individuals. As individuals, they're beloved of their Creator. But as a group, they're hated of everybody. Everybody hates the Jews. Everybody does. You'd have to be out of your mind not to hate the Jews. But you see, that is so racist. That's stupid to say that. That's what Hitler did. He made the mistake. What he wanted to kill were the Zionist Bolsheviks, or the Bolshevik Zionists. And he knew that was going on before the October Revolution, where Lenin took over. Well, I think you know who accompanied Lenin. The first Politburo was 80% Jews. That's on record. Well, how come you and I aren't taught that? Why do you think? It's because the United States is run by Jews. That's fully out in the open. That's every day on the Glenn Deason show. When I was growing up, that was taboo. Absolutely taboo. Well, there's that side of things. Now, what I want to do is give you the solution. Really, what's happening is Glenn is citing this political author who said that there was an exit strategy for basically right about 20 or 30 years ago, really when the Russian Empire fell, when the Communist Empire disintegrated, which was in the late 90s. That's when Ukraine became independent, and I was able to visit Ukraine 5 times. I can't visit Ukraine now, even though my family is there, because there's a war. So I am vitally interested in this in a personal sense. But Glenn has just said, in order to prompt Alexander Mercouris to make more comments, Glenn is a very good interviewer, and he said, obviously the original exit strategy of just stopping capitalist imperialism, once multipolarity inevitably emerged, really at the disintegration of the communist empire, well, then it's time to give in and stop the Cold War and join with Russia in a new world. Well, that was taken for granted back in the late 20th century, that was probably the smartest, wisest, most humane, wonderful, then everybody gets what they want and nobody gets hurt. Despite what may or may not have happened during the Cold War, it was already done by the end of World War II. Your good president, the cripple Roosevelt, sold Eastern Europe down the river in order to create the United Nations. And all of this was part of a concerted strategy of the Zionists, which now everybody knows. But at the time, when I was in high school, I actually could have been locked in prison for saying the things that Alexander and Glenn say every day. Everybody knows who the Zionists are now. It still shocks me to hear them say it. They say the Jewish oligarchs in America, and I'm like, what? You're going to prison. They're going to take you away. The FBI will hound you to death for saying, not anymore. Everybody says it. The neocons, even that was taboo. Nothing is taboo now, which I find highly indicative of the correct analysis that I alone apparently know what's actually going on. Because the exit strategy now is World War III. And Trump is dedicated. Trump is just a jackass. I hope you realize that. By the way, he shits in his pants. He just turned 80 and he shits in his pants. And people can't stand like near him or behind him. And if you watch the interviews, you'll notice that. Or anyone who's standing near him, watch how they just shake their head and back away. It's because he's constantly shitting in his pants. An 80-year-old president who has been diagnosed by professional psychiatrists as being clinically he's clinically insane. Well, so's Netanyahu, except Netanyahu is actually a brutal murderer. These men should be in prison. Instead, they're leading the world to World War III. The leadership in Germany now is overtly Nazi, and they're going to rearm. They want nuclear weapons back in order to launch a full-scale attack on Russia. It's going to happen. It can't be stopped. Well, what does a little man like myself have to say about that? I'm going to tell you what it means so that you're going to learn to enjoy it. You're going to learn to enjoy it. And if you had known why Hitler was killing the 6 million Jews had you lived during World War II, and I told you exactly why that was happening, so that you'd actually know the rationalization of why Hitler was killing 6 million innocent Jews, then it would be funny. It would have been funny, as long as you're able to turn off all sense of decency and empathy and human morality. But you can do that if you force yourself. I am going to force you to do it now, because the genocide that's going on against the Islam people by these fake Jews is not going to end. They want to kill every last Islam person in Iraq and Iran. And we're now talking about tens of millions of people. It's not just 2 million innocent Palestinians, which the world is now prepared to accept, obviously. Nobody's going to lift a finger to help the poor Palestinians. They're doomed. Well, that's 2 million of them, most of whom are under the age of 17, as Norman Finkelstein points out constantly. Well, what's going to be the outcome? What's the goal? Well, nobody knows. Well, I do, but nobody else does. So that's what I'm going to attempt to share with you. What I would begin by saying is there has been an internal shift in world politics, which seems like a contradiction, because isn't world politics something that doesn't have an internality? Oh no, there's an internal control group. It's just that nobody knows, or nobody's willing to admit exactly what or who it is that's controlling Israel and the United States and Germany and England to make them all do the same thing, that they all have the same mind. And I'm using a phrase from prophecy there, that they will all have the same mind. And that's brand new on the world scene. Nothing like this has ever happened before. So there is a sort of a nightmare that's just coming true. I'm sorry, I get spam, a lot of spam. There's a Gestapo lockdown occurring. It's not just in Germany. This is not just a Nazi phenomenon. It's been going on in the United States, where there is such a lockdown on truth that if I just broached it, just openly spilled the beans, you would either pass out or vomit or both, or you'd be suicidal if you understood what I said, which obviously that would not be possible. Your own soul or conscience would stop you from understanding the truth that I tell you. You simply can't accept it. This is a taboo. We're going to bring out a taboo. Really, the last taboo. Sex is no longer taboo. No kind of sex is taboo. The Jew, the whole Jew, the anti-Semitic quicksand, that's not taboo either. You can actually do that. There are certain racist things like the black-white thing in America. You're not allowed to use the N-word. That's good. So there are good taboos that are still in place, but that is so trivial. Only a child would care about that kind of shit. There's nothing that can save the situation on the black-white dividing line. That's permanent. Just as it is for the Native Americans. That can't be fixed. There's no fix for those things. It's been done. It's over. The blacks lost. They were raped. And they're going to stay raped. But you see, there's always a new generation, and that's good. Because now you have guys like David Chappelle. Well, you also have guys like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but that's not a racial thing. So the point being that there is one taboo that literally you just never hear about because it's taboo. You don't even know what it is, it's so taboo. But as soon as I broach it, you'll recognize it instantly, and I'll be able to show you that that's how you can make sense out of the world situation, is once you overcome your horror at the taboo topic, which really is deadly. So we're part of a lockdown. That's how I want to introduce this. And I'm going to prove it to you, but I don't want to go into great detail because, as John Le Carre pointed out, that is David Cornwell is his real name. As he pointed out, the more you get in tune with your enemy's mind, which is a good idea if you want to defeat him, but you see there's such a lethal danger in that. The more you understand your enemy, the more you become like your enemy. Just by understanding, rationalizing from his point of view, why he's committing genocide, why he loves to rape and murder and torture forever and ever and ever for really just, he does it for fun or power or money or both, or the Jews or the Sanhedrin, the future false messiah. There's some kind of idea that this just pushed and pushed and pushed because that's how you get your whores, that's how you get your homo boys and underage girls. You can do whatever you want. You can kill anyone you want. You're part of a mafia that is just makes the Italian and Sicilian mafias look like they're playing patty cake. These are from the James Bond movies. These are people who want to take over the world, and they know how to do it, and they can make it happen. They're Illuminati. They're Freemasons. They're Masons. They know the occult. They know demons. They do crazy shit with drugs and sex. It's all sexual. The whole idea is to defend these monsters in their little tiny sexual kingdom. And the Epstein files are part of that. Is what is evil actually after? It's after perversion. Because they have to live on this planet too. They hate God. They hate humans. They hate life. But they still have to live. And so, of course, they're demonically possessed. How do you think men get such power? All this stuff used to be taboo. Well, I think you see I'm starting to get a little dangerously close to what is the actual taboo that can't be broken. That if I were to violate this taboo, you would either want to kill me, or you would have to hate me, or you would destroy yourself. Because now you're making conscious the taboo. Well, that means you're infected. It's like what we used to call about the 4th grade cooties. You just get cooties because you heard of it. It's like you become satanic just because you hear the name Satan and you ask too many questions. What does it mean? What are you talking about? What is Satan? And then finally some Mason or someone explains it to you so you finally understand it. You're going to hell. You're dead. They got you. Well, I don't know if you believe in that. I'm not sure I believe in it, but it's something like that. Our top dog reporters right now, like Glenn Deason's right at the top, he won't come near this topic, not ever. So it's up to me, because it's the only way you can rationalize what's going on. You actually have to know. I mean, we don't know what Trump is thinking. We don't know what Netanyahu, they're both out of their minds. That's not good enough. You're not acting the part of a scientist. You're a coward. You're an idiot. You can't comment that way. That does not help. You're just saying, well, we have a theory. A theory. No. No, you have to actually have a solution. Well, what's the solution? Well, what could possibly give us some choices as to what might be the solution? Well, here's one thing that would help you if you could know it. Is there any way to decide who actually wins at the end? I mean, what's going to be the final outcome? Either way. Is there a good side? I mean, is there a good side that's being defeated by the evil side? Is that what's happening? I don't know if you're capable of answering that, but if you can't answer it, then you simply don't have an answer. Because that is what's happening. It's evil versus good, right? Everybody knows that. But is evil going to win? I can prove to you that that's absolutely out of the question. No, evil is not going to win. But first you have to know, what is the evil? What is evil? Well, you should not want to know that. I'm telling you, you have to, if you want to rationalize the situation so that you understand it, so you can return to equilibrium, carry on your life, and be so happy. You'll be happy that the Palestinians are being genocidally massacred. You'll be happy that the Ukrainians are being brutalized and perfectly reasonable lives are being ruined. It will make you happy. All the torture makes you happy. You're not distressed. You're not pushed to the edge. You're not about to take to drink or slit your wrists. You're not losing your mind anymore. You're gaining back your God-given mind because now you know that this is all the best that can possibly happen on earth. This is the right course. The 6 million Jews, there should be a yearly celebration where we all party, we all get together and just drink and have fun and just go, man, isn't it great that 6 million Jews were massacred? It's wonderful. Well, you need to be able to do that. You didn't cause it. It's not your fault. You've been brainwashed to think that you did it. You didn't do it. You're not killing the Palestinians. You're not killing the innocent Islam people in Tehran. You're not attacking Russia with missiles. You're not raping the Ukrainians. You and I aren't doing that. So why are we suffering for it? It's because your goddamn rapist government is trying to take the heat off themselves. Because they're all fucking little boys and girls. That's why they're in politics. That's why the Epstein files, even though they've been released, are now on the sidelines. But all of this is part of a concerted strategy. It's lockdown. It's so far beyond what the Gestapo ever could have imagined, or even the NKVD. In the worst repression at the darkest hour of Russia and Eastern Europe, nothing like this was even conceivable, because you're not even allowed to think the truth. It's gone so overboard. The United States is absolutely in a dark age. It's just an illusion that there's intelligence here in this country at all. There's nothing but a morbid, dark, dank sewer. And nobody knows how to think anymore. Truth will never reemerge in this nation. Truth is dead. Nietzsche said God is dead decades ago. Oh, it's way beyond that. You don't even remember what God even means. You're not allowed to even have that thought, to even argue about it in your own mind. That's why you hate religion, is because you're not allowed to think about the truth, the good side. What's being attacked? Who's being raped and murdered? Why do these evil people want to kill normal people? Why is that happening? Well, I mean, come on, let's let the cat out of the bag. Are we adults? Is it even possible? I'm telling you, you're going to hate me. You are just going to out and out hate me because Big Brother has told you. You thought that thought, you have cooties now. You had better attack the person who gave you this information. That's what's happening in Europe, but it's been happening in the United States for decades. I saw it take the stranglehold, the last gasp. It's over, children. There's no such thing as truth in the United States of America. Certainly not in science, but never in religion. We never had anything right. This nation is a bunch of backward retards. And now it's permanent. The Indians are dead. The blacks have been crushed. And the Jews have taken over. Everybody says so. So what is the taboo? What the fuck do you think it is? How come you can't figure this out for yourself? Here's what I say we have to do. I could go on through a long list of dire defeats of liberty, just one by one, liberty after liberty, freedom after freedom. This country is the land of slavery. This is the opposite of freedom. What you have is extreme wealth. You have money. And you're always going to have that money. But you know what percentage of people in this country have money? Do you see all the homeless people? Do you know where most people live, in tenements and shacks? Have you seen that part of America? You're the white, privileged super race. You are part of manifest destiny that the English swine invented, giving them the right to take over anywhere they wanted in the world so that the sun would not go down on the British Empire, and I was raised to be proud of that, even though we seceded from that fucking empire, but now we're worse than the British. We're the British now. We're the enemies of mankind, the whites. It's now one mind. If you have white skin, you're the devil. And that's part of the taboo. It's racist. What I just said is pure racism. If you have white skin, in other words, skin like mine, if you look like me, you belong to the devil. You were sold before you were born. You were born a servant of Satan. If you're born in Europe or England or America or Australia or Canada, or anywhere that the United States has touched, such as perhaps other countries I could name, but not Russia, probably not China, not Iran, not anywhere that's Islam. You know what all these people have in common, particularly the Russians and the Islam people? They're religious. They're religious. The United States is not and never will be religious again. The Christians are a laughingstock. They're pansies. They're the actual faggots. Homos are superior to Christians in this nation now, as being real people, not under any delusion. That's what it means to have a sexual identity. It means you no longer have a religious identity. So, what are we after here? We need a solution of rationalization of the horror, where everything that these men are talking about that's evil and wrong and nasty, just debilitating, degrading, demoralizing, just defeat after defeat after defeat, just running right over you, just making you suicidal, making you hate yourself, driving you to every form of indecent behavior, because the situation is intolerable, it's getting worse, and nobody can even say, what the fuck is happening? It's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse until the Jews take over. And once the Jews take over, then maybe there will be something to say, but not until that is done. Not until the Sanhedrin is back, so that when perhaps the real Messiah arises, as the Islam people are expecting, they can murder the Messiah again. And murder God if he tries to come here. To get out into outer space, to set up a perimeter, to kill God. To keep this planet protected from its own creator. It's Satan. Satan is in Jerusalem. So what's being left unsaid? Were this less of a metaphor, I would say what we need to do as the good side, it's time to nuke Jerusalem. It's time to preemptively strike the heart of evil and blow Jerusalem into vapor. However, that's not going to happen, or at least I'll tell you it should not happen. You know why? There's a mosque there. There is an Islam mosque in Jerusalem that's very important in Islam. And so it's out of the question. If it were up to me to press the button, nuke Jerusalem now, no. And not nuke anywhere in the Middle East because there are mosques. It's Islam territory. It just has a little infection of white supremacist, imperialist, colonist invaders. It's a temporary thing. They can't last. They don't belong there. Now you might say, well, that's not what happened in North America. If what you're saying is true, Great Uncle Sam, which is my nickname, if what you're saying is true, really the invaders, the white supremacist, murderous, genocidal, psychotic invaders that are invading the land of the people of God and destroying the people of God because the white, capitalist, horrific American invaders are atheist and they hate God, they're satanic, they want to kill anybody who believes in God so that the Jews can establish Satan. That's what's going on. Is that good news? If you know the whole story, it's the greatest news you'll ever hear. But we don't want to nuke Jerusalem. What we want to do is tar and feather every single Israeli citizen in effigy to re-raise the question of anti-something. But if you say it's anti-Semitic, you're retarded and you've been brainwashed by the beast and the whore. And that's just the introduction to our series on the apocalypse. By the way, for you poor Americans who are under 30, the apocalypse is the name of a book. That may shock you. You may have to, no, yes. The apocalypse is the name of a book. Does anybody know anything about it? Yes. There's one man that knows everything about it. I shouldn't name him out of strict humility, but there is one man among all Christian scholars and all Islam scholars who are actually not allowed to read that book, and that's actually a big problem I'll be addressing, is Islam ignorance of the Apocalypse, the book. Because that was the last book that came out just before Muhammad was given his revelation by Gabriel. Muhammad was spoken to by an angel of the Lord God of Israel. Okay? That's where Muhammad got the Quran. I know you've never heard any of this. I just learned it 2 years ago. And I'm the greatest Bible scholar, certainly in the modern world. Nobody knows more about the Bible than I do. And There are a lot of people who actually have admitted that, but under duress. I am hated by all Protestant Christians, instinctively hate me. However, I am rather beloved of the Orthodox Catholics. In Ukraine, I was very well received by the Orthodox Christians. I never got to Russia, and I only was able to stay in Ukraine 5 times. I would have gone back again to see my family. I married the Princess of Ukraine, the most beautiful girl in Ukraine. I met her when she was 18, and then we were inseparable until 10 years. We were married very soon. Well, not very soon. We courted for a long time. She was my translator. And so I was very well received by Christians in Kiev and in Yalta, where I delivered probably my greatest sermon, and she translated it. She was by then 19. And, well, let me think. No, she was still 18. That was on our first courtship trip, where her parents sent us a 43-year-old American and their beautiful daughter, 18 years old. Even the beauties of Kiev, even the beauties here in America, Slavic or not, they all, when they see Irina, they all bow the knee to her. She's the most beautiful girl of all the Ukrainian girls, and the Ukrainian girls are universally recognized as the most beautiful women in creation. I got the most beautiful one of all. But at the age of 28, after she had established herself in this country, I taught her how to drive. She learned quickly. She got a job. She was beloved. We used to go to barbecues and go to church with the other Russians in the area, Russian-speaking people. We were having a great time. She was having a wonderful life. We had a perfect marriage, which still brings tears to my sister's eyes. But alas, at the age of 26, she contracted an incurable form of cancer, one of the rarest forms, called synovial cancer. It's 100% fatal and only strikes young women around her age. About from 25 to 35 is when they get this, and your lungs are eaten away by cancer until you can't breathe. And there's other ways to die of it because, of course, cancer metastasizes. And so at the age of 26, she contracted cancer. And of course, we were desperately unhappy about that, but we had to face it. We did. She was supposed to die within 3 months. She lived without pain and had a normal life for an extra year. And I was able to take her out on vacations. She thanked me so much because I gave her those gifts because I know my land and she didn't. So I took her to the most beautiful places on the Pacific coast in that year, where she continued to work. She continued to work at her full-time job. She continued to drive, but she knew that she was a doomed woman and that eventually she would get what is called breakthrough pain, and then within a few weeks, or maybe even longer, in a desperate decline, you lose control of your body progressively until finally you snuff out. And we went through that whole process. And at the age of 28 in July of 2008, she passed away. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. And when I see her again, we're going to be able to remember that it was beautiful. She was a believer in God. She never swerved. That's why she married me. Because I'm a believer in God, and probably one of the only Americans that actually does believe in God and actually lives that life. So that's who is telling you the secrets of the universe, and currently the situation where Israel and the United States are major players in the book of Revelation. And I'm the only man who understands that book. And so that's the only way you're ever going to get any answers. You're not going to get any answers out of Fat Nose or Pointy Nose. These guys are absolutely retarded. They have no brains. I've got the brains. And that's what you need, is to start listening to me. Period. Keep looking up. We'll be back with more. There's a full moon. Don't neglect to look at the full moon, you only have about one more summer of life left. Although I really can't say that for sure, because no man knows the day or hour, not even the Son of Man in heaven, whom the Islam people have no idea that he actually is the Son of God. Although Muhammad met him in heaven, that's in the Quran. Muhammad was taken to heaven where he met Jesus Christ. Well, he's not the only one. John was taken to heaven, the guy who wrote the Apocalypse. Well, who spoke the Apocalypse? That was Yeshua from heaven, the intelligence report sent to me and nobody else. That book called Revelation, the last book in the Bible, was written to me. Nobody else understands it. Only I was able to decode it. Only I know what's in that book. What about Muhammad? Where did he get the Quran? He got it from Gabriel, one of the 4 holy angels that guards the throne in heaven. Gabriel, there's also Raphael. You may have heard of Raphael. There's Michael. He's in the Old Testament. And there's one other that you will never care about because you've been brainwashed. You're retarded. You'll never wake up. You definitely hate me now. I'm telling you, I have all the answers. You're hating me and wanting me to die in some horrible way because I know the truth that you'll never know. That makes me overjoyed, is to watch you suffer. Because I offer you the way out. God offers you a way out. You hate him for that. Jesus offered you a way out. You hate Jesus. So I offer you a way out. You hate me. I get a reward for that. You know what you get? Keep looking up. There's always hope. Keep listening to me. That's your last hope. Amen.